You will now be able to grab a beer when you head to Love Live Local Fest this year. And we chat with Town Manager Mark Ells about the proposed Hyannis Parking Overlay District on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Monday, July 18th, 2016. I'm Sarah Mantle. For the first time this year, the Love Local Fest will have a beer truck in Hyannis. Organizer Amanda Converse requested a one-day beer-only license for the event, which is entering its fourth year.
This is going to be our fourth season of the Love Local Fest on Azleton Park, where we have live music, kids' activities, vendors set up on Azleton Park. And this year we wanted to incorporate Cape Cod beer at the Cape Cod Maritime Museum property and have their beer trailer there to sell beer.
Have you had beer in the past, or will this be the first year?
We have not had beer for the Love Local Fest, no.
And they'll be taken care of by the woman next to you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Beth Marcus from Cape Cod Beer. We have had beer in that location, not for the Love Local Fest, but for the Tour de Barnstable earlier this year, which went swimmingly, except for the really, really large breeze we had that day. Mm-hmm. It was a very windy day. So we've definitely scoped out the space and understand sort of how we'll run it in terms of limiting people from leaving the fenced-in area. And like I said, it went really well last time, and so we're encouraged that it'll be a nice addition to the event.
And the licensing authority unanimously approved that request. Love Live Local Fest will take place at Azleton Park Sunday, July 31st and Sunday, September 25th. Town Council will discuss the proposed Hyannis Parking Overlay District at its meeting this week. To learn more about the plan, Channel 18's Sarah Colvin talks with Town Manager Mark Ells.
I want to talk a little bit. We've been hearing a lot about the Parking Overlay District. I know it's kind of gone back and forth with the Planning Board and the Town Council, and there's lots of questions, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions going on, especially in the community at large. So let's talk about this. If you can kind of give a basic overview of what the goals of the Parking Overlay District are.
Sure, I'll have to back up.
Sure.
And a couple of years ago, the responsibility of signing the licenses for open-air parking was shifted from the town manager to me at the time as assistant town manager. And we began to have a discussion with staff about the underlying zoning at the licensed open-air parking lots that existed down in the harbor area. They primarily service the summer parking and those individuals coming here to go to the islands on the various, the High Line and the steamship. And there were other issues at the time that were going on, but in parallel with that, and because there were issues with underlying zoning relevant to where those lots where licenses had been issued for decades
Right.
to these open-air parking areas, the town council created a subcommittee. And so we were doing all the functional things like issuing licenses and, we have rules and regulations that are associated with those licenses and managing the parking from that perspective, both from a regulatory standpoint and in general. The town council was the subcommittee of the town council was looking at that, as well as wrestling with the issue from a policy standpoint of what's the best way to resolve this issue of, hey, we've had parking lots there on these specific lots, like I said, for 30 or more years, yet the zoning doesn't coincide with it. Some people had special permits. Some people may have been before Board of Appeals for some level of variance. I can't remember specifically. But we have a list of all the parking lots. We have a list of all the potential conflicts, and almost all of them had some underlying issue. So it was thought that this would be a way just specific to those existing parking lots that have had licenses for 30 years to basically allow what's been licensed for the last 30 years.
So really not making any changes to the lots. I know there
No,
were
there's
some
a lot. Oh,
concerns.
I was at several different gatherings over the weekend, and this was a topic of discussion. And I would say the most concerning misunderstanding was that we're going to rezone the whole harbor for parking. So just think, there'll be parking lots all over the harbor, and that'll be terrible. And I said, where did you, well, I haven't seen it, I haven't seen the map, but that's how I understand this. So when I explained when I just explained to them what I shared with you, they had a better understanding.
Sure.
Now, I am not trying to direct people's decisions or feelings about this, only to give them accurate information so that they can make the decision they need to.
Absolutely.
And so that's the biggest. There were a lot of other smaller misunderstandings.
So essentially this won't open the door for the creation of more parking lots, but it will correct some inconsistencies that perhaps are
That's
in
the
place.
intent. Yes.
Indeed. And I'm thinking, when we're thinking about those parking lots, obviously there are ones, down off of Ocean Street, but the ones that I think of really are on South Street as they head toward the hospital. They used to be people's front yards or property.
Well, that's a
now,
different scenario.
That's a different
That's
scenario.
and
Okay.
that's another misunderstanding. There was a particular name associated with those lots, but they lost in court against the town relevant to that. Since I've been delegated the role, we have worked with the family to stop any illegal use of lots for parking.
Sure.
At that location.
At that location.
And we continue to regulate so that if others pop up, we would go through a similar procedure. Obviously, we try to avoid going to court if we can just sit down with the individual and say, well, either come in and get a license or cease what you're doing. But if they won't, then you proceed appropriately. So that activity that you're referring to right at Pleasant and South
Sure.
has stopped, except for the one lot on
Yep.
Pleasant Street that is and always has been licensed.
Indeed, indeed. So again, the parking overlay district we're talking about really just strictly there to kind of clean up some old zoning laws, and that's coming back before the town council this week.
It is, and there's a couple of other issues going on that I know you're well aware of, relevant to a parking study that we're doing.
Yes.
And some of the discussion with the various groups that I had this weekend was, well, why don't you just wait until that study's done and see what the study recommends relevant to this overlay issue. And I don't know that it's going to yield any different information that would help people to make a better
Right.
decision on this. There seems to be a fundamental feeling from people that, well, we want people to come here. They're going to have to park. Some of those people who come here take the ferry. They need a place to park.
Sure.
Let's be careful in where more parking comes, and there's a lot of discussion about multi-level, parking for structured parking
Right.
facilities, but and where those would go, and but if we come back to the specific existing, we feel that we want to manage this issue. When there are people here, they're going to be, or a lot of them are going to be in vehicles. And so parking is a good thing to have to manage. We just have to try to do it well. So I'm not fearful of that. I don't view it as a negative. Some people don't want the parking there fundamentally.
Right.
They just don't want it there. And even more broadly, sometimes they don't want the vehicles and the crowds.
Right.
And so those were the types of discussions we were having this morning. Lots of different opinions on it.
Indeed.
And so I'm sure this issue before town council will be fully discussed before a decision's made. And any information that we can share with our public or our visitors. I've had people from Nantucket calling me. Relevant to this and relevant to the parking changes in our town hall park.
And town council meets this Thursday night at 7 in the town hall hearing room. We'll be sure to tune in to our hour-long news program, Barnstable This Morning, weekdays at 8 a.m. On tomorrow's show, we will chat with Police Chief Paul McDonald. We'll talk with DPW Director Dan Santos. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.